The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad in simple English, part 11 of 15, Muni Kanda continued, chapter 4 continued, section 3. This part is about the light of man as the self, and about the different states of the self, about the self in deep sleep, and about the self at death. Yagyavalkya came to Janaka, king of Videha. He did not wish to talk. However, on an earlier occasion he had granted the king a boon to ask any question whenever he wished, and if the king asked him a question now, he was honour bound to answer it. Janak decided to ask his question then. He asked, "What light does a person here have in this world? What serves as the light for man in the world?" Yagyavalkya replied, "He has the light of the sun in this world. With the sun as the light, one sits, one moves about, one does one's work and returns." Agreed. When the sun has set, then what light does a person here have in this world? When the sun has set, then the moon is his light. With the moon as the light, one sits, one moves about, one does one's work and returns. Agreed. When the sun and the moon both have set, then what light does a person have? When both the sun and the moon have set, then the fire is his light. With the fire as the light, one sits, one moves about, one does one's work, and one returns. Agreed. When the sun and the moon both have set, and the fire has also gone out, then what light does a person here have? Then speech is his light. With the speech as the light, one sits, one moves about, one does one's work, and one returns. Therefore, your Majesty, even where one's own hand is not seen, there, when speech is uttered, one goes towards the sound. Yes, I agree. When both the sun and the moon have set, when the fire has gone out, and when speech has stopped, then what light does a person here have? Then the self is his light. With the self indeed as the light, one sits, one moves about, one does one's work, and one returns. Which is this self? The person here, who consists of knowledge among the senses, is the light within the heart. He, remaining the same, wanders along the two worlds, seeming to think, though he does not really think, but only witnesses the acts of thought, and also seeming to move about. He, on sleeping and getting into the dream conditions, he transcends this world and also the forms of death. This person, when he is born and when he obtains a body, he then becomes connected with evils and with the sources of both good and evil, with the body and with the organs. When he departs on dying, he leaves all evils behind. There are just two states of being of this person. One is his state of being in this world, and the other is the state of his being in the other world. There is, however, an intermediate third state too, that of his being in sleep and in dreams. By being in this intermediate state, one is able to see both those states, that of being in this world and that of being in the other world. Now, whatever the way to the state of being in the other world is, having obtained that way, one sees both the evils of this world and the joys of the other world. When he goes to sleep, he takes along with him the material of his all embracing world. He himself tears it apart. He himself builds it up. He sleeps and dreams by his own brightness, by his own light. In that state, a person becomes self illuminated. There are no chariots there in those worlds. There are no animals there to be yoked to those chariots. There are no roads there. But he creates all these himself. He creates everything and he projects everything for himself. He creates chariots, he creates the animals to be yoked to them, and he creates the roads. There are no joys there. There are no pleasures there. There are no delights there. But He creates the joys, He creates the pleasures, and He creates the delights. There are no tanks there. There are no lotus pools there. There are no rivers there. But He creates the tanks, He creates the lotus pools, and He creates the rivers. Indeed, He is the creator there. On this, there are the following verses. Having struck down in sleep what belongs to the body, He Himself, sleepless, looks down on the sleeping senses. Having taken to Himself the light, He goes again to His place. He goes to the golden person. He goes to the light that is pure intelligence, the lonely swan, the one spirit. Guarding his lone nest with a vital breath, the immortal moves out of the nest. That immortal one goes wherever he likes. The golden person, the light that is pure intelligence, the lonely bird. In the state of dream, going up and down in the different worlds, the God makes many forms of himself, now enjoying himself in the company of women, now laughing in happiness, or even seeing fearful sights and even being frightened. Everyone sees his sport, but no one ever sees God himself. Everyone is aware of the experiences, but no one sees the experiencer. The self is so near to us, yet it is not perceived by us. Therefore, they say that one should not wake the sleeping person suddenly, for it is difficult to cure if he does not get back rightly to his body. Others, however, say that the state of sleep is just his waking state. For whatever objects he sees when awake, those same objects he sees when asleep. This is not correct, for in the dream state the person is self-illuminated. Janaka said, I give you 1,000 cows, venerable sir. Please instruct me further for the sake of my liberation. After having tasted enjoyment in this state of deep sleep, in this state of the highest serenity, after having roamed about and seen good and evil, he returns again as he came to the place from which he started, the place of sleep, the dream state. Whatever he sees in that state, he is not affected by it, for this person is not attached to anything. Yes, Yagyavalkya, I give you 1,000 cows. Please instruct me further for my liberation. After having tasted enjoyment in this state of dream, after having roamed about and seen good and evil, he returns again as he came to the place from which he started, to the state of waking. Whatever he sees in that state of waking, he is then not affected by it, for this person is then not attached to anything. Janaka said, just so, Yagyavalkya, I give you 1,000 cows. Instruct me further for the sake of my liberation. After having enjoyed in this state of waking, and after having roamed about and seen good and evil, he returns again as he came to the place from which he started, the state of deep sleep. Just as a large fish moves along both the banks of a river, the nearer and the further, so also this person moves along both these states, the state of dream or sleep and the state of waking. The self is different from the body and the organs of the body. In the waking state, the self appears through ignorance to be connected with the body, with attachments and with death. In the dream state, it appears as connected with desire, but free from the forms of death, while in the state of deep sleep, it is perfectly serene and unattached. The self is by its very nature eternal, it is free, it is enlightened, and it is pure. Even as a large fish moves about from one bank of the river to another, so does the self move between the dreaming and the waking states. It moves between the dreaming and the waking states. As a falcon or any other swift bird, having flown around in the sky, becomes tired, folds its wings, and flies down to its nest to rest. Even so, this person hurries to that state of the self where he desires no desires and where he sees no dreams. In him truly are those channels called hita, which are as fine as a hair divided 1,000 times, filled with white, blue, yellow, green, and red fluids. Now, when he feels as if he were being killed, as if he were being overpowered, as if he were being pursued by an elephant, as if he were falling into a well, this is what he imagines through ignorance, through fear that he has experienced in the waking state. But when he thinks that he is a god, as it were, that he is a king, as it were, that he is all this that is in existence, then that is his highest world. This is his true form, which is free from all craving, which is free from all evils, and which is free from all fears. As a man, when in the embrace of his beloved wife, forgets everything and knows nothing without or within, inside or outside, lost in that embrace, so too is the state of the person when he is in the embrace of the intelligent self. He knows nothing without or within, he knows nothing inside or outside. That is his true form, in which his desire is fulfilled, in which the self is his desire, in which he is without desire, in which he is free from any sorrow. There in that state, a father is not a father, a mother is not a mother, the worlds are not the worlds, the gods are not the gods, the Vedas are not the Vedas. There in that state, a thief is not a thief, a murderer is not a murderer, a low caste is not a low caste, a mixed caste is not a mixed caste, a mendicant is not a mendicant, an ascetic is not an ascetic. In that state, he is not affected by good, he is not affected by evil, for then he has passed beyond all the sorrows of the heart. This state is beyond all empirical distinctions, and it exceeds the limitations of caste, and it exceeds the limitations of stages of life. Here, the self is not touched either by good or by evil, and the sorrows of the heart stop being sorrows any longer and are all turned into joy. Truly, in the state of deep sleep, when he does not see, he is in fact seeing, though he does not see. For there is no stopping of the seeing of a seer, because of the imperishability of the seer. There is not, however, a second, since there is nothing else that is separate from him that he could see. Even in that state of deep sleep, when the eye and the other senses are at rest, the self is the seer, though he does not see with the eyes. The seer can never lose the character of seeing, just as fire can never lose the character of burning so long as it is fire. The self sees by its own light even when there is no second object. Truly, when in the state of deep sleep, he does not smell. He is in fact smelling, though he does not smell, for there is no stoppage of the smelling of the smeller. Because of the imperishability of the smeller, there is not, however, a second. There is nothing separate from him that he could smell. When in the state of deep sleep, he does not taste. He is in fact tasting, though he does not taste, for there is no stoppage of the tasting of a taster. Because of the imperishability of the taster, there is not, however, a second. There is nothing else separate from him that he could taste. When in the state of deep sleep, he does not speak. He is in fact speaking, though he does not speak, for there is no stoppage of the function of speaking for the speaker because of the imperishability of the speaker. There is not, however, a second. There is nothing separate from him to which he could speak. When in the state of deep sleep, he does not hear. He is in fact hearing, though he does not hear, for there is no stoppage of the function of hearing of a hearer, because of the imperishability of the hearer. There is not, however, a second. There is nothing else separate from him which he could hear. When in the state of deep sleep, he does not think. He is in fact thinking, though he does not think, for there is never stoppage of the thinking of a thinker. There is not, however, a second. There is nothing else separate of him of which he could think. When in the state of deep sleep, he does not touch. He is in fact touching, though he does not touch, for there is no stoppage of the function of touching of the toucher. There is not, however, a second. There is nothing else separate from him that he could touch. When in the state of deep sleep, he does not know. He is in fact knowing, though he does not know it, for there is no stoppage of the knowing of a knower. There is not, however, a second. There is nothing separate from him which he is to know. When there is, as it were, another, there one might see the other. There one might smell the other. There one might taste the other. There one might speak to the other. There one might hear the other. There one might think of the other. There one might touch the other. There one might know the other. He does not see or smell. He does not taste. He does not speak. He does not hear. He does not think. He does not touch. Or he does not know. For there is nothing separate from him. There is no second to him. Yet he sees, he smells, he tastes, he speaks, he hears, he thinks, he touches, he knows. For he is the one with seeing, he is the one with smelling, he is the one with tasting, he is the one with speaking, he is the one with hearing, he is the one with thinking, he is the one with touching, and he is the one with knowing. He becomes transparent like water. He becomes one, the seer, without duality. This is the world of Brahma, your majesty. Thus did Yagyavalkya instruct Janaka. This is the highest goal. This is his highest treasure. This is the highest world. This is his greatest bliss. On a particle of this very bliss, other creatures live. If one is healthy in body, wealthy, lord over others, lavishly provided with all human enjoyments, that is the bliss of men. That is the highest bliss of men. This human bliss multiplied 100 times makes 1 unit of the bliss of the fathers, of the ancestors who have won their world. The bliss of these fathers who have won their world multiplied 100 times makes 1 unit of the bliss of the Gandharvas, the celestial singers. The bliss of the Gandharvas multiplied 100 times makes 1 unit of the bliss of the gods by action, those who attain the divine status by meritorious action. The bliss of the gods by action multiplied 100 times makes 1 unit of the bliss of the gods by birth, as well as the one who is versed in the Vedas, who is without sin, and who is not overcome by desire. The bliss of the world of the gods by birth multiplied 100 times makes 1 unit of the bliss in the world of Prajapati, as well as of one who is versed in the Vedas, who is without sin, and who is not overcome by desire. The bliss in the world of Prajapati multiplied 100 times makes 1 unit of the bliss in the world of Hiranyagarbha, the world of Brahma, as well as one who is versed in the Vedas, who is without sin, and who is not overcome by desire. This is the highest bliss. This is the world of Brahma, your majesty, said Yagyavalkya. Janaka said, Venerable sir, I give you 1,000 cows. Please instruct me further for the sake of my liberation. At this, Yagyavalkya was afraid that this intelligent king would drive him to the end of his convictions and gain all his knowledge from him. He said, after having had enjoyment in this state of dream, after having roamed about and seen good and evil, he returns again as he came, to the place from which he started, to the state of waking. Just as a heavily loaded cart moves along creaking, even so the self in the body, mounted by the self of intelligence, moves about creaking. Just as one is breathing with difficulty when one is about to die, when this body becomes thin, whether through old age or through disease, just as a mango or a fig or a fruit of the fig tree releases itself from its bonds and gets detached from the stalk, even so this person frees himself from these limbs and returns again as he came, to the place from which he started, back to a new life. The dying man separates himself from his physical body, even as a fruit separates itself from its stalk. He goes back to his new abode, the same way he came, and there he assumes another body in which to begin a new life. Policemen, magistrates, chariot drivers, and leaders of the village wait for the arrival of the king with food, drink, and lodgings, saying, "Here comes the king, here he comes." Even so, for him who knows Brahm, all beings wait for him, saying, "Here comes Brahm, here he approaches." Just as policemen, magistrates, chariot drivers, leaders of the village gather around a king who is departing, even so do all the breaths or senses gather around the self at the end, when one is breathing with difficulty, when one is about to die, waiting for him to die. End of part 11 of 15. Om Shanti 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 Om.